Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I will be talking about Love Island All Stars, episode number 2. So let's just jump right in. Episode 1 ended with Scott coming in as a bombshell and he called out Sean and Shaq. So we find out in this episode that they both have to spend a night in the hideaway, kind of away from everybody. So we see Scott is talking to the guys in the villa. And he's telling them that the whole reason he even called out Shaq and Sean is because he's interested in Belle and Leanne. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. But it still doesn't really explain why he came for Sean so hard. We then see Shaq and Sean talking in the hideaway, and Sean is basically telling Shaq that he's gutted that Scott came for him the way that he did. And to be honest, Sean looked like he was about to cry, guys. I was like, oh my God. Even I find Sean annoying. I don't think that anything that Scott said was a lie, but at the same time, I felt a little bad for Sean because to be called out like that in front of everyone, like Sean literally looked like he was going to start tearing up. And I was like, oh my God, it's not that serious. But then I also understand how Sean feels because it's just like somebody you've never met before is coming at you like that. I think it was just a lot for Sean to like process at that time. So we see Scott basically telling the guys that he really likes how Leanne looks, and I can just tell that he's like got his eyes set on Leanne and Belle. So we see that Scott and Belle get to talk. Belle basically tries to hold Scott accountable, and she tells him like, she asks him, why did you even like come for Sean so hard? And Scott basically explains that it was for movie night because during movie night, Sean was like running his mouth and just piping up way too much, like almost unwarranted. And Scott just says that he doesn't like when people pipe up for no reason, when it's not warranted. And Belle basically tries to call Scott a hypocrite. So she's basically trying to say that Scott does the same thing. And I thought about it and I was like, Belle is not wrong because Scott also has a very big mouth and pipes up in conversations and situations when he's also not supposed to. Not the same way that Sean does, but Scott does also run his mouth. Scott basically changes the subject and he compliments Belle's eyes because, I'm pretty sure he wants to just kind of change the pace of the conversation. He starts flirting with Belle. Belle is eating it up like candy in the palm of your hand. I can tell that Belle is also really interested in Scott too. So yeah, they're definitely vibing. And all I can say is I feel like I'm seeing a different side to Belle. Like the way she's talking with Scott, I'm like, I can tell Belle is really interested. Not that she wasn't interested in like Shaq when she was talking to him, but I feel like there's another part of Belle that I'm seeing come out now that Scott is in the villa. Okay, then we get to see Whitney and Jack, right? And the public put them together, so they're talking. And, Jack basically tells Whitney that he has a 2-year-old daughter. Whitney is like, respectfully, like she basically says that she doesn't really believe in dating guys that already have children, like single fathers. She talks about Christianity being part of the reason for that. And I was so confused because I'm like, what part of Christianity says you can't date someone that already has children? I mean, at the end of the day, Whitney just doesn't want to date someone that has children, she doesn't want to date men that have children. And I'm like, that's fine. But just say that, right? Like, why try and bring up Christianity or the fact that you're Nigerian or I don't know, something. Like she was just saying a lot of things that to me didn't really explain why she wasn't interested in dating him because he has a child. Yeah. And I think that Whitney like is taking things a little too seriously. At the end of the day, this is Love Island. Like it is not a serious show. Like I get that women are coming in. I feel like the Islanders are coming in and they're like, oh, I want to find someone. But like you need to know how to flirt. You need to know how to put on a little bit of an act. And if considering the fact that nobody else is really showing a whole lot of interest in Whitney, it's not very smart to just completely cut things off with Jack so early on and just say, oh, because you have children, it would never work. Like, I'm so sorry, but the villa is not a type of place where you should be thinking, I want to find the partner that I'm going to be with for the rest of my life. Like, you're on a TV show. So Whitney needs to like lighten up a little bit. Okay. Like this is fun. This is Love Island. Okay. This isn't like Married at First Sight or even Love is Blind, right? I think she's taking this process a little too seriously. And I think she's shutting things down with Jack like way too early. So yeah, she needs to like not take this so serious. All right, then we see Millie and Kieran talking, and the public put them together as well. And I can just tell by Millie's body language, like, she does not want to be with Kieran, you know? And we all know that it's not a lack of her being attracted to Kieran. Like, she is attracted, right? I mean, she finds him attractive. It's like, it's the age, you know? Like, it's too much of a gap. You know, he's 23, she's 29. And she basically says she thinks that the public put them together because of their past relationship, or her past relationship with her ex-boyfriend. Basically, we see Millie telling the cameras that she would rather be in bed with Charlie. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought. I understand where Millie's coming from. She's 29. Like, at this point, she's probably over like dealing with certain kinds of guys. And I think that Kieran is just not in the place where he needs to be, or she would like him to be, right? I feel like Charlie just makes a lot more sense for Millie. So, all right, we then see Belle, and she is talking to Helena about Scott. And she's basically just saying like how much she really like fancies Scott. And as this is going on, you know, she can see that Scott is now pulling Leanne for a chat. As you know, Belle is watching this, she comments to Helena and says that that makes her a little bit jealous. And I'm like, Belle needs to calm down. Like, one conversation with this man and you're using the words jealous? Oh, no. Like, Love Island is not the kind of show where you're going to get jealous after one conversation. She needs to chill out a little bit. I'm like, I feel like, and this is what I'm trying to say, I feel like Scott is bringing out a completely different side of Belle. Like, she needs to chill out, okay? Like, just a little bit. A little bit. So, all right, we then see Scott and Leanne talking, and Leanne says she's, you know, Scott wants to know, like, who is she into in the villa and stuff, like, who does she like? And Leanne basically says she's open to everyone. And then she kind of explains that she's just more of a personality person, and that it's not even about like the way someone looks that's gonna like have her really interested. Scott then compliments Leanne's eyes, and I'm like, you're really using the same line that you used on Belle. Like, Scott, you don't have any other lines? You came to Love Island with one line to shoot on all the girls? Scott needs to do a little bit better than that. That was a little bit disappointing, and it came across as just a little disingenuous, like you're just spitting game. And I feel like this was the first time that I'm kind of looking at Scott like, are you even serious at all, right? He says he's ready to settle down at 25 years old. Mind you, Leanne is 28. And I don't know why, but I'm starting to not buy this act. Like, I'm like, are you really ready? Like, are you serious or not? Because some of the behaviors, like, it's giving strange. Like, why are you shooting the same line on two different women? I can't take this man serious. I actually cannot. So the Islanders then play a game, and it's kind of like a dare game with the dice, where you can either roll it and you have to do the dare, or you choose somebody else to do the dare. So I'm not going to go through the entire game, but I think the biggest takeaways was Tommy got to kiss every girl in the villa, and he freaking loved that. Millie is asked to kiss two Islanders that she says, Millie is asked to kiss two Islanders and then say who's the better kisser. She chose Charlie and Scott, and she basically said Charlie was the better kisser. So in this game, we just see Millie and Charlie continuing to connect even more. Kieran is asked to kiss two Islanders, and he chooses Leanne and Jess. So I didn't even know Kieran was interested in Leanne. So that was kind of different. I was like, okay, we know Kieran is interested in Jess because he DM'd her on on Instagram. So we already know that interest is there. And then Belle and Scott ended up kissing twice. So their connection is clearly continuing to grow as well. Okay, so it's the next morning, and we see Scott is basically talking to both Belle and Leanne. So I guess he's trying to now talk to them both at the same time. And he talks about how he's looking for something serious and that he wants marriage, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. And I don't know why, but I just can't take Scott serious. Like, first of all, he's 25 years old. And I'm not trying to say that a 25-year-old guy isn't serious about settling down, but a 25-year-old man who decides to come on Love Island again after being on these shows for how long, I'm not buying it. I think that he knows how this Love Island stuff works. He knows the game. He knows he has to be in a couple. And I think he's willing to just do and say whatever to have some options and make sure that he ends up in a couple. And if I'm being honest, Scott to me is very intelligent. And I think he's playing the Love Island game in a very intelligent way. I think that he's trying to make sure that he has options in case something kind of falls through. Because we all know that being in a couple on Love Island is huge for staying on the show and not getting kicked off. So yeah, we shall see. I don't know how much he's into Belle or Leanne, if I'm being really, really honest. Okay, then we see Sean and Scott, and they get to talk. And Scott basically says straight up that he doesn't apologize for what he says, but he does apologize for the delivery and the fact that he said it in front of like everyone. Now, I'm not gonna lie, like, I don't think Scott, I like what he said. I think that it's good that Scott kind of stood 10 toes in what he said, because at the end of the day, everybody was thinking that about Sean. Scott just said it out loud because he's that kind of person who's just going to say it out loud. One thing I do feel for Sean about is the fact that Scott said it in front of all the Islanders. I think that he was almost like a little bit embarrassed. And for that, I do feel for Sean. But I'm hoping that Scott saying this to Sean will make him reflect on his behavior. And I hope that this season of All Stars, he is less annoying. So far, Sean is doing pretty well. Like, I feel like there hasn't been any situation that's made me look at him sideways. And I think that because Scott came in and said that to him, Sean will be even more attentive of not really doing some of the behaviors and things that he did in his season. And I think that that will be a good thing for his image. And I think that if he does pipe down with the annoyingness, Sean could actually be liked by people. I don't think he's a bad person. It's just he was doing way too effing much on his season, like way too fucking much. So hopefully he kind of pipes that down. And I just want to say that I love Scott for being so honest, because so many Islanders can't even have that level of honesty. Jack and Whitney have another talk, and Whitney basically says she's still open to Jack, even though, like, to me, that's a flat out lie. I think the only reason she's still trying to, like, entertain anything with Jack is because both of them don't really have anybody else going after them right now. So if they end up in a couple, then it's like, okay, we have to be cordial. Which is why I don't get why Whitney shut things down with Jack so quickly, because no matter what, like, being in a couple keeps you kind of safe on Love Island. So yeah, they're probably going to have to ride this out, even though they're both not really feeling it from what I can see. Tommy and Kieran comment about how they both think Jess is being very closed off. And then I realized that we hadn't really seen Jess this episode much at all. So I don't really know what's going on there. And if I had to guess, Jess is probably not interested in Tommy or Kieran. Do I blame her? No. Let's keep it a buck. Tommy is 22, Kieran is 23. Jess is 25, I believe. And after what happened to her on her season with Sammy, she probably wants to kind of not lock in with anybody and see who else is going to come in. So to me, Jess is probably trying to play like a different type of game this time around and keep her options open, because I don't think she's feeling Tommy or Kieran. And finally, they're trying to they're finally kind of picking up on that. Scott and Whitney talk, and Whitney basically says to Scott that she doesn't really buy that he's into Leanne. And Whitney's rationale I thought was pretty interesting, because I didn't really think about this, but Whitney basically says that she knows that Leanne is kind of like a material girl. She likes nice things, likes to live her life a certain way. Scott is kind of more outdoorsy and low key. So she doesn't really see like their personalities and lifestyles matching. Now, Whitney made a very good point. I didn't even think about that. And I don't know if Scott's thinking about that or if he recognized this about Leanne. So I think that hearing this, Scott will probably go for Belle. And Belle might be a better option for Scott, because I think Whitney just made like a really big point. I don't think that they would mesh on the outside, since Scott is supposedly looking for marriage. So we shall see. But that's the end of episode 2. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I will be reviewing every single episode in this season. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it to the end, I really, really appreciate you. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.